Okay, folks. So today let's start with Shakti Pumps. Is my screen visible? All good?
Yes.
Okay. Som sir, over to you.
Alright. So Shakti Pump is so primary revenue stream is one is solar pumps, second is export, industrial pump and EVs, right? But majority of it is as part of PM Kusum scheme. That's their primary revenue stream, right? So if you scroll down, that's roughly 70%, right? So that is one problem area really, wherein very concentrated in one specific area in terms of
Sir,
the revenue stream.
what's the thought process behind PM Kusum? What is PM Kusum?
So this is to increase the income of farmers and provide sources of irrigation and desalinization. The agriculture sector to receive the benefit of the scheme, farmers need to install solar irrigation pump. All right, so this is the installation of solar irrigation pump, and which is what is provided by Shakti Pumps.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a 2019 scheme, and I think that is where Shakti Pump actually started growing as well.
Scroll down to revenue, which should align with what you're saying, right?
So 945.1 crores, 52-year YOY increase, and 623.2 crores in FY23. Okay, export sales made 21% of company's revenue.
Yes.
And the other sales, the remaining portion of revenue came from supplying pumps, motors, and other equipment to industrial industry.
Correct.
So-
But 70% is very high, right? So there's just over dependence on that particular scheme.
Okay. So what
Yes.
you're saying is कि कल को कोई scheme बंद कर देता है या if a new political party comes to power and decides to stop the scheme, they will have a tough time.
That's correct. Yes.
One more thing I have observed, sir, ऊपर में ये जो electrical vehicles है, ये थोड़ा मेरे को थोड़ा टेंजेंशियल डाइवर्सिफिकेशन लगा. सोल पंप्स में आपका मतलब कोर बिजनेस है एंड यू इनटू सोलर पंप्स एंड इंडस्ट्रियल पंप्स मेक सेंस. ये सडनली कहाँ से आ गया? इलेक्ट्रिकल व्हीकल्स, ईवी मोटर्स, चार्जिंग स्टेशन, मतलब
So
अजीब
which
सा
is
diversification.
yeah. So which is when it's tricky. I think they are also probably trying to diversify, or at least trying to leverage the whatever their expertise, use the expertise in this new area, but probably very small.
एक चीज और व्हाट आई कैन सी इज दैट इसका कुछ रेवेन्यू पे असर है क्या? मतलब इज देयर एनी सिग्निफिकेंट पार्ट बीइंग कंट्रीब्यूटेड बाय दैट सेक्शन?
So just assume it's around 30%, and then within 30%, it should be very small.
Actually, maybe on the government's business itself, it's worth also evaluating whether it's actually a bad thing. So generally, the view is that if you want to build some sort of a long-term moat, you need to get into an area which has very high barrier for entry. Getting into government business actually has a very high barrier for entry. So once you are in, you make your contacts, you make your setup, you generally get one contract after the other, you get central contracts, you get state contracts, a lot of them. Others are generally, it's difficult for people to replace them once you are in the inner circle. And as of now, Shakti Pump seems to be one of the major players in PM Kusum providing these solar powered water pumps. So maybe it's actually a good deal. It does suggest that for till something very unto-do happens, the business will continue to grow as more and more farmers adopt it. Maybe the other question would be how much is adoption of PM Kusum? And that is something that we can look at.
The other thing to probably check is, which I have not, is the funding from government, right? So that scheme, I don't know the duration of it, and will the government will continue to allocate the funds for that scheme. I'm not entirely sure. And again, the adoption of it, right? So at some point in time, it's going to taper off.
So based on the quick glance, what I can see is that in PM Kusum, the government subsidizes 60% of total cost and provides a loan of 30% of the total cost.
Yeah, so
Correct.
roughly 90% is covered by the government.
And that is huge. And basically, people who are running initiatives, especially for energy security, by shifting from conventional power sources to renewable energies, comes under the purview of the scheme.
Yes. So one thing to keep in mind is, right, so you're right. The government I mean, and this is continuing from last term also, right? So they want to continue to invest in like renewable energy and anything which is around it. The part to look at is for this specific scheme, like, is there any change in terms of allocation of funds, right? Which I haven't, right? So we can
So
look at it.
I just checked on the union government's allocation. Looks like the government has reaffirmed its commitment for renewable energy. For PM Kusum, the allocation has increased from 2,525 crores to 2,600 crores in the latest budget.
So, one conclusion is very clear. So, at least for next 4 to 5 years, at least till the government is in place, I don't see any business challenges or policy threat from that perspective, at least for next 4 years.
I agree. Like broadly, the PM Kusum scheme stays. Shakti Pump continues to be a major investor. The only other bit that we should evaluate is, has a competitor come into this space and
Hmm.
has started to make inroads in this business. So
Yeah.
maybe the drop that we have seen in Shakti Pump stocks in last 2 3 months, we should check whether there is a drop in sales as well, which in the last few months or quarters, which will indicate a competitor has come. Then even suddenly the pie is shared, and then you don't know whether you have that moat anymore.
Makes sense. So, sir, financial analysis.
So
Anything to?
financial analysis is in line with what we were discussing, right? One thing is, after this scheme, right? So given that is the majority of their revenue or sales, there is a sudden increase, right? So after 2019 to 2020, like if you see from 2020 to 2021, suddenly like it's 3x, right? So from 383 to 930, and then again stabilizing there, right? And there's a fair amount of like growth. 26% or 25 plus percentage growth is fairly good. I think there is some drop in 2023, which I may have to check, right? Um, I haven't really like spent time to figure out why there was a drop, but again, they have recovered, right? So there was a recovery in 2024. If you look at for now, again, I think so that the trend is continuing in terms of sales growth.
So what is the TTM number? So the 2460 number?
This is, I think, uh, till whatever now, I guess.
Last 3 quarters. So they've almost doubled.
Yes, yes.
So, TTM is trailing 12 months.
Got it. Yeah. So which is roughly if kind of you take last quarter of 2024 or whatever that number is and just take these 3 quarters, which roughly translate to that number, right? Which is most probably next annual number would be somewhere around.
Sir, one interesting point is, and again ties up to our PM Kusum, see manufacturing cost. And it is in percentage of the, I think, total cost spent. It's only decreasing if you look at it.
Yes.
So that is aligned with the fact that as you get economies of scale, you get more mass, so more orders, so you're making more pumps. You actually add those efficiencies of knowing how to make it more efficiently, and the utilization increases
So
or whatever
basically
is.
reaching economies of scale.
The other bit is let's actually look at their cost of goods produced, which is uh, the the material cost, which has also increased. So since 2021, they have been in 70% range. Then they got to 80% range, 77% range in 22-23.
Hmm. So it's
Which has
hovering at,
come down now.
hmm,
Hmm.
but around 65 to 70 percent. Yeah, I think this kind of ties up with inflation, right? Like,
Not necessarily. So generally, if material cost increases so vigorously, it is possible that you have not optimized the suppliers. So you are basically not contracting them well. You have gotten, basically, you are fulfilling the orders and not found the best supplier to help you fulfill that order.
Makes sense.
So if this continues to come down, then it is that they have started optimizing their supply chain.
Oh, okay. If you look at profit before tax, I'm just interested to see if if they've got any tax advantage comparing profit before tax and profit after tax, except for 2020. I don't see it's pretty consistent across. So 20 में ठीक है, tax कुछ तो rebate मिला है 35%. And one interesting thing is कि dividend payouts जो है, if you look at the last row, it's very inconsistent across. Unlike some of the other companies and more like large caps like Infosys and all, who are very consistent in paying out dividends.
Yeah. So maybe I don't know what's the general trend in middle cap. Do they actually follow that discipline of paying out consistent dividends or not?
Generally, I haven't seen any mid cap following, but large caps like Reliance, Infosys are very consistent in paying out dividends.
Yeah, but also because a lot of investments that come to them are from big institutional investors who
Right,
want to know how much dividend are they getting.
right. So overall compounded sales growth is 161% trailing 12 months. Compounded profit growth is 614% trailing 12 months. Stock price in last 1 year has increased by 283%. Return on equity is 24%.
The next question is why did the stocks drop after Q3 results?
So the sales drop.
Current drop, which happened on 10th of Jan onwards, is aligned with them declaring their Q3 results. So what happened in the Q3 result?
So the Q3 results, I think if you
Let me
see,
check.
I think there was a drop, right? So if we can go to screeners and look at the quarterly result.
ETM is trailing 12 months. So it's basically a YOY.
I agree. Like I think the number seems a little too big. Trying to see what happened in that week. Shakti Pumps still has a. There's this article on one of the websites. Still has a price to sales ratio of 4.4x, while most other machinery industry has a price to sales ratio of 2.6x. And this is after the correction. Price to earnings ratio.
So if we look at year comparison, so if you look at the PE in contrast to the return, see, I would say it's still not like at this point of time. Maybe it's as per the trend. I mean, it's not too huge, but what you're saying is कि Q3 के result के वक्त it was huge, and that's why that drop came off.
No, I'm saying is even after now, the price to sales ratio is huge. So basically, this is the price to earnings seems to be okay. It's possibly they have a higher profit margin compared to their peers, and that should show up. This is somewhere where you can see the profit margin for each of these EBITDA percentages. Actually, that's okay. It's not too bad. So we were just discussing whether Shakti Pump has a higher price to sales ratio compared to its peers.
So, Som sir, continuing from where you had dropped off, I think we have discussed the financial pieces, unless you have to cover anything specific, anything that stands out. One thing we also observed was that they have got a tax rebate of minus 35% in 2020, which is one off. Otherwise, it's quite consistent across. Um, Profit after tax, except for the dip in 2023, It's been growing in multiples. See, 140 to 388. So this is almost like 6.5 times, and this again almost 2.5 times of previous year, which is huge. The jumps are huge. Even I think compounded sales growth, the numbers are huge. Uh, YOY 161%, compounded profit growth is 614%, return on equity is also 24%, which has been increasing consistently.
So on the sales, I think the tricky bit is
Yes, I think it's hovering around 1,000 crores, but there is a huge jump of late.
true. Can we
Um,
look at the Vivek? Can we look at the profit? Right. So while sales are fine, can you go to net profit?
hmm.
Yeah. Let's look at it. Right? See what's there. So there also, if you see positive trend.
Yeah, there is a positive trend, and except for the dip here in 2023, wherein profit almost had a huge dip from 65 to 24. If you ignore that, there has been multiple jumps, like multiple folds jump, 24 to 142, 142 to 388.
No, but relatively, it's moderate, right? I mean, like if you look at 23 and trailing 12 months, it's around 6%, right? So there is 19%, then 6, 15, and then again 6%.
So trailing 12 months, as per this data, is 161%. Compounded sales growth and compounded profit growth is 614%.
Okay.
That's 650.
Yes. So the growth is there.
Yes, I mean it's growing multiple folds year on year. One thing which we were discussing was I'll just was peer comparison, and what we have seen is that the P ratio as compared to the returns are at this point of time looks to be as per the trend, doesn't sound too costly. So if they continue to grow at this rate, I believe like I mean the P doesn't have to catch up. It could be a good bet.
So maybe,
Right.
Vivek, just before that, if you go back to screener, can you
Yes.
bring the screener up? In the first graph, and wait for it to load. Under more, just select market cap to sales. And in the graph that you're showing, under more, next to PE ratio, select market cap to sales. Basically, what this is showing is that the market cap has grown significantly faster than how sales has grown. So the correction could actually be that the market cap is way more than what the sales can accommodate. So basically, price to sales is significantly increasing, which could be on the potential side, but
Yeah.
it also is. Okay. So I was just telling Vivek that if you look at market cap to sales graph, if you look at the last few quarters since April, the market cap to sales is on the higher side. That effectively means that your prices have increased much more than what your sales have increased. We can look at that for the peers as well. So if you go down, Vivek, and in the quarterly, just go to the peer section, go edit columns.
So you can search for it very directly. Go, go. Scroll up. Yeah, there. Filter ratio.
Price to sales have cut. Save changes. Save column. The last column that you see, well, this is still online. So maybe Kirloskar Brothers Pumps is the only cheaper one. Others are in the same range. So effectively, this entire segment seems to have increased their market cap to sales ratio. So actually look at rotor pumps and others if they have also increased equivalently in the last few months. month.
What is one thing to probably also understand is what need is triggering their sales. मतलब pump, I'm just thinking like is pump something जो आप हर 2 3 4 5 6 महीने में खरीदते हो? Like beyond a point, like most of the farmers would have their fields irrigated. एक बार पंप लगा दिया तो उसका longevity मेरा assumption था कि ह्यूज रहता है, लगभग 5 6 साल चलता है.
नहीं, but ये solar pump है ना, तो transition could be one thing, right?
Transition
Like
period.
that people like.
तो
So one interesting thing, the scheme has the PM Kusum scheme seems to have benefited roughly 4 lakh farmers till mid last year, till June 30. Uh, Maybe it's basically that set of farmer adoption, as Som is saying, is driving this.
does that also mean कि एक पॉइंट के बाद वो ग्लास सीलिंग टच कर जाएगा सेल्स, बिकॉज जो आपने करना था कर दिया? मतलब इट्स नॉट गोइंग टू, व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज जो आपका सेल्स का ग्रोथ रेट है वो अभी इंक्रीज कर रहा है प्रोबेबली बिकॉज ट्रांजिशन स्टेट है, बट एक बार ट्रांजिशन स्टेट खत्म हो जाता है फिर तो व्हाट, मतलब मेरा ये सब देख के एटलीस्ट द इनिशियल परसेप्शन आई गेट इज कि मे बी 2 3 साल के लिए ठीक है. The PM Kusum Yojana continues, your transition continues, but it has to be reviewed after 2 3 years.
Could be. One interesting thing is, Vivek, right? एक बार share holding पे जाओगे क्या? So while the promoter holding has gone down and quite significantly, I mean, like from 56 to now it's 51%. FII and DIA has gone up like pretty significantly last year in 2024.
Even promoter holding Som sir, मतलब ऐसा drastic decrease नहीं.
Yes, sir, correct. So it's not as if there's a sell-off, but 5 percentage point is
I
like
think management
not trivial.
control hold कर रहा है, way above 50% रखा हुआ है.
So one thing is it is very high, but yes. So interesting thing is there is good amount of holding. Can you expand FII? Let's see and DI both.
कुछ है नहीं सर इसका expansion में. DIA में है. We have LIC mutual fund, SBI mutual fund, and these are some of the folks जिनका major.
FII में why there is no data? When the price has crashed in next 1 year, 2 year probably could be an interesting bet. थोड़ा बहुत देखना पड़ेगा. But हाँ, the long term के लिए at least I don't understand this.
Yeah, I think even when you look at PM Kusum, Shakti Pump compared to its competitors have a higher share, but it's still only 30% of PM Kusum's budget. So they get roughly, I think the numbers are similar, 500, 600 odd CR from PM Kusum in the same range, but there's still 70% upside in PM Kusum. Others like KSP or Roto Pumps do not have that higher share in PM Kusum. So till the PM Kusum is there, this is possibly a good.
I think till the PM Kusum is there and also till this transition phase is going, probably the trigger to sales will also be there.
Yeah. Just checking more on PM Kusum on how many hours do you have it, current adoption and so on. PM Kusum also is funded heavily by UP government and not necessarily. Somehow it seems like most of the deals of PM Kusum are happening in Uttar Pradesh, which is also basically that ties to that alignment with changing of governments in UP, if at all. I don't know where's.
So I think that's a good point actually. So political alignment also matters.
But since UP elections happened in 2024, they still have 3 years.
So I think all the parameters are pointing ki next 2-3 years, so it will
Hmm.
have a good run.
It seems safe, yes.
Okay.
Som has another power cut.
Backup भी होगा.
Shakti Pumps से हो गया होगा.
So Som sir, what we have concluded is
Yes.
that one important point which Prabhupada brought up was that uh, it is probably also being funded by the UP government. And I think, the conclusion is that as long as the UP government is in power and as long as the central government is in power, uh, and this transition phase is in progress for next 2-3 years, it seems to be a good one.
So
And
at
after
least for
that, it needs to be reviewed.
yeah, at least for next couple of years there is stability, right? I don't know after that, and like adoption anyway is gonna take time.
But two things which have come out is there is a heavy dependency on PM Kusum, and there is also, as Prabhupada pointed out, there is a heavy dependency on uh, the political alignments.
Yeah, 70%, around 70% sales is coming from PM Kusum.
So with that, I think with that conclusion, we can close Shakti Pumps, and maybe we can focus on uh, the missing pieces of Tata Motors which we discussed last time.
Yeah.
Rather, which we couldn't discuss last time because of time constraints.
Sounds good.
Prabhu, do you have something to present, or should I open the screener?
Maybe let's open the screen and
I think good business fundamentals.
Yeah.
Okay, Tata Motors. So Tata Motors ka, what we had observed was that most of the parameters are pretty consistent from a business perspective. The only thing last time which we did not drill into was that in the last 6 or 7 months, we have seen that there has been a decline in stock price. And we wanted to figure out why there has been a decline. What is causing that?
I'm just looking at Tata Motors versus Hyundai.
So if you look at from around
So I don't know if did you get time to look at the annual report? I'm not entirely sure, but I think the units sold are probably in some regions probably has gone down. I think that could be one reason. So while overall it may look healthy annually, but I think there was some decline. I haven't had time to look at it, but I think that probably going to be one area to check. So if you look at their
So,
last annual report,
so last time also we discussed who else would be a right competitor for Tata Motors. So there should be Hyundai. Who else should we think of?
these most of these are into passenger segment.
Yes. They're not the right competitor.
They are not the right competitors. Tata Motors also has a passenger segment, right? You have 707, 407, and then some of the trucks which are coming out. But I don't know how much of that contributes to the business.
Correct. So I think the one thing that I'm also looking at is if I look at Hyundai and Maruti Suzuki, which is more consumer segment, all of them seem to have declined in the last 6-ish months. Clearly, Tata Motors went from, like if I look from a September mid price of 1120, it has gone to 700. Hyundai went from a September-ish price. I have a lot of data for Hyundai, but like from a 1900 in November to 1620 in on 30th Jan, and then it picked up the last 3-4 days. Maruti Suzuki went down from 13,500 in September to 10,900, 700 in end of start of Jan. So to me, one thing that comes out is possibly the segment also dropped. Across the board, the segment has shown that there's a dip, and Tata Motors followed that.
But if you look at Hyundai and Maruti Suzuki in January, by end of January, they almost came back to their original highs.
So there was a segment drop. That is fair. The next question is, others have recovered in different phases. So Maruti, so this is I think Maruti, the one that you're showing now, recovered from early Jan. Hyundai recovered from late Jan. Tata Motors has not recovered. The question is, why has Tata Motors not recovered if segment drop was the thing that was driving it?
That could be, we may have to look at their Q4 quarterly results.
Yes. Maybe let's compare those.
This is the Q4 result.
I think the question, Vivek, more is compared to the segment, what has happened in the Q4? So has the segment jumped more versus them? As I'm just trying to look at that. So for instance, Hyundai has not jumped at all. With broadly the same sales, same profit margin as they were in December 23. So let's like from that 12 months perspective. Tata Motors has the same sales and same profit margin, slightly lower profit margin than December 23. Maruti is the only one whose sales has increased and profit margins have been same since December 23. So, okay, so the other insight is that both Hyundai and Tata Motors, and bringing the segment, the sector conversation, have roughly seen their profit margins decline significantly. Tata Motors more than others. So basically, Maruti has maintained their profit margin in the last 12-ish months. Tata Motors has clearly shown a decline since June. And Hyundai has also shown some decline, but not as much. So it went from 13% to 11%. Tata Motors went from 14-ish, 14, 15% to 11%. Maruti stayed like 13%. So possibly there is again some supply chain conversation happening here, or some additional tariffs or investments happening. By the way, this is operating profit, so maybe not investments. Some additional expenses have grown. Now looking at expenses of the three. So expenses for Hyundai are 75-ish% stable for material and 3% for employee cost. Tata Motors material cost has stayed 61%, but employee cost is very high. It is 11%. Okay.
That has been consistent throughout, right? 10 to
That
11.
has been consistent throughout. And Maruti, the material cost is 70%-ish, and the employee cost is 5%. So Tata Motors has lower material cost, but there's nothing in the expenses which shows this trend. Uh, Sales growth.
Yeah, another
Look,
thing I wanted to show you was Mahindra and Mahindra.
yeah, let's also look at that. It's a good stock.
And it pretty much comes into the same segment.
Hmm.
Um, Now, if you look at the sales figure here, quarterly results.
Mahindra's ticker is Mahindra and Mahindra Limited. Yes,
So this is Mahindra,
yes, I got it.
and if you look at it, December say December 23 to December 24 YOY, there has been a decent increase in sales.
Yes, so Mahindra is apparently the only one whose stock has not decreased as well. So if you go back to the top, its stock has not decreased in the last 1 year or so.
Irrespective of the segment downtrend which you discussed, I
Hmm.
think Mahindra hasn't been really impacted. And
And
even I think this is a good comparison here. If you look at Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai Motors,
hmm,
uh,
just the highest PE. But if you look at say price per sales, it is on an average side. Price per sales is okay.
but look at Hyundai Motors. P in contrast to the returns. I mean, I would say in the segment, it's the cheapest, right?
Hmm.
And Mahindra seems to be on the costlier side.
Mahindra
Compared
seems
to,
to be on the costlier side. Also, possibly also because others have dropped in the last few months. Its sales for Mahindra and sales is consistently growing.
Sales has consistently grown. I think YOY, if you look at it,
In,
around
in fact, the operating profit is also from 18-ish% in December to 20-ish%, which is the only one. So this and Maruti seems to be at par or increasing.
right.
Others, for the others, the operating profit has gone down.
Hmm.
Other income is almost.
In net profit also, there has been a consistent increase.
One additional thing that interestingly happened for Tata Motors is in their assets, in their fixed assets, they recognized a huge intangible asset in September 24. But maybe they have done continuous to do that. Go to the asset section, balance sheet. Niche. Scroll down. Scroll further. Balance sheet. नहीं, reverse direction. Sorry, scroll down. हाँ, ये यहाँ पे. Balance sheet, open fixed assets. You recognize a high intangible asset. Just trying to see if that's the industry trend or not. So Hyundai hardly recognizes any intangible asset. Intangible assets, by the way, are goodwill, reputation, brand name. Those are intangible assets. Even Maruti doesn't recognize intangible. This Mahindra and Mahindra also recognizes some, more like 10,000 crore, 12,000 crore, but not more. But these guys have to recognize like 75,000. 1,000 crores or 75 crores? In crores, 75, yeah, still 75,000.
What you're saying is right. क्योंकि if you look at from March 24 to September 24, it has a huge drop, right? 116,714 to 75,743.
So
That is
this could
almost a
represent,
40% drop.
yeah, so this could represent that there is some goodwill loss, which is also impacting this more than others. Others have a more stable-ish, for others, not necessarily. Hyundai also sees an intangible asset drop from 1,000 crore to 200 crores. Uh, Maruti sees an increase in intangible asset, and Mahindra sees an increase in intangible asset. So Hyundai and Tata Motors seem to be on the other side where intangible assets are going down. which effectively means they feel their goodwill is going down. Or this could be patents, industry standards, things that competitive benefits that they have.
So this could be one of the reasons, but I'm just thinking, would the investors factor this into account?
So possibly, yes. So okay, so this is my take. Uh, I think the segment started dropping from September onwards, possibly because of macroeconomic conditions and the whole car industry went down. Uh, Others have recovered in December or in Jan. Tata Motors has not found that recovery, and others have recovered possibly because the operating profit margins have also recovered in the last quarter, the last results. But Tata Motors has not found that recovery.
So I think until and unless it shows growth and increase in margins, I think it's more of a wait and watch.
Possibly yes. The segment though might be okay since the other
The segment is okay. I think this problem is specific to Tata Motors.